Bring the ship to the side. I think there's survivors on that island. I see 4 people. How did you guys live?
We ate a gorilla.
But, you know that's like only 2 steps away from
There were originally 6 of us.
Welcome to Board Gamers Anonymous, a podcast about gamers and the insane fun we have at the table together. This week, live at our local Myriad Games on Staten Island. This is Anthony.
This is Dan.
This is Chris.
This is Kim.
And this is Mike.
Welcome to the episode. This is a very special episode for 2 reasons. First off, we are at our local Myriad Games. We are recording in the back at one of the tables. We have Mike here.
Hello, everybody.
Good friend Mike. And this is episode 20, so all sorts of goodness going on this week. We're going to talk about a lot of games because we've gone to the 2-week format now, so we have a lot of games we've played, so we want to go through as many of them as we can, including the hotness of hotnesses right now, Robinson Crusoe, which we finally got to the table, and a bunch of other stuff. Study in Emerald we played recently, got a couple others that came out, but it's going to be a big, hot podcast. Listen through it. No more holiday gifts to listen to us open. But that is this week. All right, so first things first, we have a few Kickstarter things we wanted to talk about. And one of them, actually, we got a great email from the guy who's putting it together, Joey. And so we took a look, and it looks really awesome. I know we watched the videos. I know I think it just hit its funding just the last couple days, and it still has like 3 weeks left. And it's called Chaosmos, I think is what we call it.
Yeah, and I mean, the game looks really awesome. It's basically it's almost like espionage style where you're going around planets, you're trying to find the ovoid. It's an artifact that'll save your planet when the rest of the universe is caving in on itself. And the game looks amazing. In the middle, there's like this countdown dial letting you know when it all just ends in a bang. And there'll be like items that can actually accelerate the time and decelerate. And basically, each planet has its own little custom envelope that when you go and you explore, your ship can only carry so many things. So you're going to choose what you're taking, you're going to put the rest of the stuff back on the planet, but you can also like set traps. So when another player goes to that planet, there'll be something waiting for them. So it's trying to like outwit your opponent, you might bait them, like you might intentionally leave the ovoid on a planet that has like some heavy duty traps, knowing that you'll come back to it later while you're trying to find other things to help get you through the game. I mean, the components look awesome, the alien races look really nice. One of the things that I love is that there's the Mimic race. That's one of the Kickstarter add-ons where it basically dupes what other players are. My favorite type of card. But I mean, it looks really interesting. I'm already on for the backing in this game because it does look beyond awesome.
Yeah, and it's cool because it's got a little bit of that abstract look that these sci-fi games have, but it has minis too, which is awesome. So they, whoever did the art design in this did some really cool looking alien races. So it's not your usual little green man. So it reminded me a little bit of a Cosmic Encounter that way. Like they took some time to make some cool looking races.
Now, you mentioned with Cosmic Encounter, for playing Cosmic Encounter, and Chris, you might even want this for Attack Wing, one of the add-on items is like a space playmat.
Oh, great.
So it'll give you like, that celestial feel and stuff like that for any sci-fi style game. You can always use that as like an alternative terrain for like Star Trek, Attack Wing, Star Wars, Attack Wing, any of those games. It's definitely a nice little add-on. Yeah,
and there's an option for a 5th player too, like I think at the 2nd tier.
Yeah.
So I think it plays up to 4 normally. You can get the 5th player, which I guess probably an expansion in the future.
And if you have a local gaming store, definitely encourage them to get on this Kickstarter because they'll be getting 4 copies for what would only be normally 2, including a store demo. And that'll be a great game to show to other players.
Yeah, definitely. So if you dig sci-fi games, if you dig, alien races and this is kind of a cool twist on that. It's not your usual trading or invasion and explosion type style.
Yeah, or just trying
game.
to get the best warship or whatever.
Yeah, so check this one out. And they have a lot of great stuff on the Kickstarter page too. Tons of videos so you can see how it looks and how it plays.
Yeah, so that's Chaosmos. It's Chaosmos.
And that's from Mirrorbox Games. So those guys are out in LA. And that, I think it has 3 weeks left, so probably when this comes out, we'll have about 2 weeks. So you'll have plenty of time to check it out. All right, so there's a couple other cool Kickstarters out there right now. One that I know everybody's talking about, and we actually been not arguing about it so much, but trying to decide if it's worth backing, is the Mega Man game. You've probably seen it. I don't know how the gameplay's going to be. It's hard to tell from the Kickstarter, but it has a ton of minis, so that's why it caught my attention. But then the price...
Yeah, like the minis look nice and everything,
How much is the minimum backer level to
I think it's like a little high. It's not like a $50 game, right?
It's 60 or 70.
That's about. I mean, it's high, but that's about average for some games I've paid.
No, like, let me ask you, because I know you're a little younger than us, Mike. Like, did you grow up playing Mega Man games, or?
Not a lot.
You never really, yeah, like.
I played a few. You know, I
like the
didn't
X
really.
series
I didn't
was-
have when I was younger. The game systems I had, I went from Nintendo straight over to the PlayStation.
Yeah,
So I sort of skipped over the Sega stuff. So I was never really big into Mega Man when I was younger.
Yeah. Now, Chris, you got to play that back in the day, right?
Yeah, I wasn't a big Mega Man fan, but I knew of it, and I did end up playing it a little bit later on in a lot of the Capcom versus Marvel games.
Yeah.
I don't know, for one reason or another, I didn't really get into the, beat Cut Man in order to beat the next guy and so forth, but it was always a classic, iconic character in the Nintendo universe, and it was played pretty much everywhere. It's pretty broad appeal to it.
Yeah, because, I mean, I don't know, man. My theory is this. Unless that board game makes you punch walls and scream at the top of your lungs in rage, it's not going to capture what the old Mega Man games were. Because they were exercises in punishment. You had to die 75 times to know when that 30-second invisible brick will pop.
Well, that was every classic game from back in the 80s. It was just like, oh, you're so hard. I hate you.
Yeah, but Mega Man was like a whole nother level.
Oh,
like
yeah.
when they went to the X series, a little easier, but those first 8 games were.
Yeah, like
Brutal.
I actually
Brutal.
think the UN declared making someone play Mega Man to be a crime against humanity. So.
I mean, it was like the first time where like there was like a wave of suicides amongst 9-year-olds. Like that's how pain-inducing it was. And for
1990 was a dark time.
it was, and for it as a
dark time.
board game.
Well, I'm skeptical of it because it's a licensed product, and maybe because once burned, twice hesitant, as the saying goes. When you
Yeah.
see.
It's hard to tell because
see a
the
licensed
components
game-
look awesome.
Yeah, they do. I mean, that's the thing. It's
It might be one of those ones we wait on, but I know it's something that.
Well, I'm sure
everyone's
Brian's
talking
gonna
about.
get
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah, well, Brian,
Brian's got it. We're
It's already
good.
backed it. Yeah.
I mean,
So
the minis look beautiful.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
are gorgeous.
Well, this is definitely going to be a must-have for collectors, because even if the game's not great, you can always put the figures on a shelf.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably do that.
yeah.
But,
Yeah, if you loved Mega Man as a kid, why are you not backing this game?
no, I think
If you're one of those.
Because you don't
type
have
of
60
people.
bucks to just throw away in a couple of
Well,
minis.
70. It's 70.
Ooh.
70.
Yeah, the early bird was 60. So, but that's Mega Man. I don't know if any of us are going to back it, but it's something that's out there. If you love Mega Man or if you love minis, maybe.
definitely take a look at it,
Or
especially
for
if it's
Brian.
something you played in the past. The only question is, do games like this who try to bring non-gamers into the hobby, once they play a game of this, supposed hobby level, if it doesn't work out, if it doesn't play well, like some of the other video game IPs, do they just pull out of hobby gaming at all? I mean, could it be bad for the industry?
Yeah, I mean, if the game is bad, I could see that.
Or
But
it could-
how many licensed games are bad? There's a lot of them. So
Yeah.
It might even be like a board game like
And-
Madden for them, where it's like they get that board game and they play just that every so often.
that's true. That's true. Like, how many people do we know who do like War Machine and they play Horse
Just
or
that.
High Command?
Just Catan. I know some people
Yeah.
that they have Catan, that's it. They don't care about getting other versions of it or other games. They just play Catan.
Yeah, and that's their Euro. That's the highest level they're going to go, which is great. It's fine, but
Yeah.
the wonderful plethora of games currently behind us maybe would not interest them as much.
But if a lot of video game companies I hear now are encouraging their designers to mess around with board game development to connect to that classic sort of design element, to get to that base level.
It's hot right now. So,
Yeah.
if nothing else, people are willing to put the licenses out there, it looks like.
Yeah.
Like Capcom was like, sure, why not?
Yeah,
They're
well,
not making it. Someone
no.
else is making it.
And that's a good sign too, that outside big companies are starting to see value in the hobby game market.
Yeah, so that's definitely something to check out. If it's on, if it's on your radar, I'm sure we'll play it at some point. I'm sure somebody we know here
Yeah,
will
Brian's
pick it
gonna
up.
get it. We'll play it, and then we'll be fine.
Yeah, so we'll tell you how it is when it comes out.
comes out. And
I don't know when that's supposed to ship. It's got minis, so probably October or something. But
if we're lucky.
yeah. All right, so I think those are like the two big Kickstarters that are on our radar, at least right now. In terms of other news, I know we got a lot going on lately. After the holidays, we kind of kicked some of our local outreach into high gear, especially Chris. You've been all over this.
Sure. Recently, part of Board Game Anonymous, we went out to the New Jersey Board Game Meetup, which is right over in Edison, New Jersey, but they actually spread out throughout the whole state of New Jersey. And I had an opportunity to meet a lot of those great gamers over there. And typically they play over in the Menlo Park Mall, but as we want to do for everybody, including you, the listeners out there, we really want you to come out to Myriad Games in Staten Island. It's a great place to play, a lot of tables, a lot of fun, and a great selection of games. So at this event, I got to meet Aldo, who was running the event, and Steven. and we got to play some great games. We played, first off, we played Coup, which I got to teach for some people, and that was a lot of fun. We had actually 10 people playing that game. So it was great that I actually had the Kickstarter so we could play with a large group of people.
Nice.
And that game was going exceptionally well. And one of the players there, Richard, actually had a great handle on it, and he was moving the people along. And which was funny was because, like every other game, you either have that personality for the game or you don't. So some people didn't want to lie or bluff at all. And they were like, so what do you have? I have the assassin. Okay, so that's what you're saying you have. No, I have it. I wouldn't lie. I'm like...
Lie to me!
I kill you for 3 credits?
And especially Ariel, who was really great. She hosted a bunch of great games there, and she was just so sweet and so kind and considerate. But she didn't want to hurt anybody, and she didn't want to lie about anything. But she did love purple, which is always a great thing. So she was a purple fan. I also had an opportunity to get in a couple of games of Werewolf, and I was actually able to host one of the games. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great. I'm going to be able to host this game, and then the first round, the seer was able to pick out the werewolf. So took out the first werewolf, and then I think it was Chris who was able to just randomly point out the second werewolf. And I'm like, well, that was fun. So that was like literally the shortest game of Werewolf I've ever played.
Were they doing the Team Reckless of just rolling dice and that's who they were picking?
No, they actually nailed it. I couldn't believe it. I know every once in a while the seer gets lucky and they're able to actually catch the person, but otherwise, who knew that they would be able to pick out of like 8 different people who the person was. Then we played a second game where we played with Cupid, and we had the hunter and the tough guy.
The special rolls, yeah.
Yeah, so I never saw tough guy before, but that was really interesting.
I like the special rolls in Werewolf.
Were you playing the card one or the same one I have?
It's the card one.
Yeah, there's like 30 more rolls in that one.
Yeah.
Sure. And usually, for me, Werewolf doesn't play well at all. It just seems completely random, but it was actually fun to get those extra rolls. It gave the game a lot of nice flavor to it. So, once again, the Werewolves had a hard time. They went for the tough guy, and he was able to bounce that off.
Nice.
Cupid did pick 2 people, and then the werewolf killed one of the lovers,
And it's great.
and then unfortunately killed the other lover. So
Because you die of heartbreak. How great is that?
That's horrible.
So Aldo and Steven were killed just because of the heartache of the other one dying, which was pretty sad.
As we laugh.
Can we start calling the Cupid person Odwalla from PSG?
I think you can. So I actually got to play in that game and I actually somehow survived. So it was me and Cupid who survived the game, which was a lot of fun. And then we broke up into smaller groups, and one table was playing the DC deck building game, and the other table was playing Betrayal in the House of the Hill.
Since you mentioned the DC deck builder,
Yeah.
Where's the expansion? We've heard about this forever.
Cryptozoic.
I just give it to me.
Who's that, Upper Deck?
Cryptozoic.
Cryptozoic.
Upper Deck's
does
legendary.
Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, come on, man.
You're an actual game company.
Legendary made like 11 expansions already. Just give me my DC deck builder
With
expansion.
another one coming out next month.
Dude, they come out like faster than Magic cards now.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Which I'm waiting. They're supposed to be doing a Aliens version of Legendary.
Yeah, we heard.
And I'm dying to play that because Alien and Aliens are 2 of my favorite movies.
Kim is dying not to play that game.
I don't know. It's just I've seen what they've tried to do with remakes and the video game. When they make the Alien video game, that was
That was
horrendous.
awful.
That
So
was
bad.
horrible.
What, the Colonial Marines?
Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah, it was.
It's just
I wouldn't
that-
say it was bad. It was mediocre.
No, it was bad.
I thought it was pretty
The
mediocre.
graphics were horrible.
But the thing is, I mean, like, as far as thematics go, I think the card game is going to be perfect, like, to feel like the movie. Because you remember that part of the movie when one of the aliens was pummeling one of the Marines? And he's like, I drew a bad hand! I don't have any attack cards! I remember that scene. So, I mean, it's going to really feel like you're in the movie when you're playing, you know?
Game over,
That's how
man.
it-
Game over.
I don't know, man. But based on when we play, I think it's going to be like, please let this game be over, man. Please let this game be over.
Well, you know what? I like the. I have it in my show notes because it's one of the games I played this week, Legendary, so I don't want to jump ahead, but it's one of my favorite deck builders. I like the theme of it.
Because it works. Because it's superheroes. It's not the Aliens movie.
But Legendary?
So,
Yeah.
me and Earl, we played it last week, and I drew a hand of 6 wound cards. It's like, oh yeah, remember that time Wolverine just couldn't do anything?
Yeah, when he was just a skeleton and he had to heal up. Give him a turn. He's Wolverine.
I can't get into Legendary because all the games I've seen people play, nobody wins. It's impossible.
It's not impossible.
It is impossible.
Well,
Have you
Cruz has some strong opinions.
I mean,
about this.
the game literally plays one or two ways. Either it's ridiculously easy
Blow
and you're
out
done
of
in half
death.
hour, or you just can't win no matter how good you do. You could cheat the entire game, you still don't win.
My favorite thing, hands down, though, is when you hear people playing and all you hear from the table is, yeah, awesome, whatever. Another person leaves. Great. Just come on, next turn, next turn.
The sign of a great game.
I will,
Feels like a hero.
I will suggest out there, never play Apocalypse with the superhero Civil War.
Wait, really? You mean the end of the world guy is hard to fight? He's
With the superhero Civil War, not a good time.
So last thing about Great Finds as far as the New Jersey Board Gamers Group, I got to meet Tom, who is one of the writers and lead designers behind Secrets of the Lost Tomb, which was a recently funded Kickstarter game. It plays a lot like that Pulp Fiction, Indiana Jones kind of meets Betrayal on the House of the Hill. So there's these ever-growing kind of tiles, board kind of builds up.
yeah, you showed me that thing.
And it has multiple scenarios to it. It has everything from exploring to aliens to Cthulhu, because you have to have Cthulhu, and
To quote Smash Up, the obligatory Cthulhu.
pretty much.
Well, I heard
So-
in Kickstarter that's in their 2014 agreement. You just have to have Cthulhu and
I
everything.
think so, yeah.
Everything must involve Cthulhu.
So we're hoping to have Tom on the podcast and talk about his game, and hopefully be able to demo it here at Myriad Games in Staten Island, and let you know when this game actually hits the stores so you can pick it up.
And it hit like over $100,000, I think, too, right?
Yeah, it was
Nice.
it was a nice Kickstarter for them, and it looks like a great game with a lot of possibilities for the future.
Acquisition Disorder Corner. All right, guys, so what are we looking for this month?
All right, man. I've been doing a lot of fantasy lately, so I was thinking of going for like a little more of that steampunk feel. Heard City of Iron is really good. I was thinking of getting that.
Yeah, I think you bought that like 3 months ago.
Yeah, I did get. All right. Well, what I was thinking is Suburbia is really fun. I've been playing that all on the iPad.
You got that also.
We did.
Yeah, we just played the expansion like 2 weeks ago.
All right. Well, Mythic Battles should be a good 2-player game for me.
I
and
got
Kim.
that for you for Christmas.
I don't think there's anything I want now.
Yeah,
What's going on?
I have all the games.
I think Christmas was very good or very bad to us.
Yeah.
It's good to us. Not so much for my bank account.
I have Amerigo too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
there
good.
you
All
go.
right.
Amerigo.
All right, so I'm covered.
We should have taken a picture of that stack next to you. Like, we could measure your height in games.
Yeah, I'm actually.
Next to him, I couldn't see him.
Well, me and Dan actually piled all the games that we got on the dining room table.
But you got to be careful
Really?
with Kim because they will kill
Did it
her.
look like
They will
our
fall down
extra
and
light
bury
pile?
her.
They're taller than me.
Yeah, we're gonna have to call like a rescue crew that does, the avalanche rescue, and by the time we find you, you'll have frozen to death.
You know, I'm still here, right? I'm still alive. Didn't happen.
It could happen.
Why are you calling me dead?
I'm just saying.
All right, so I think we're going to skip Acquisition Disorder this week because we've acquired everything.
Except for one thing that me and you were eyeballing.
That's
Manhattan Project.
true. I do want to check that out.
Bombs.
Because nothing is greater than a game that can be measured in mega deaths.
Yeah, well, I was figuring, we had our Christmas cheer and we spread joy, and we have our New Year. So now we go back to games of killing.
Yeah, it is January.
Yeah.
Nobody likes January.
Yeah, I mean, like, all that
Yeah.
good spirit stuff is out the door.
It's cold.
Time
It's
to
wet.
mix.
It's
been-
icy.
It went from
You're a
negative
mailman.
20.
You hate January.
And you know what makes it nice and warm? Nuclear winter.
Exactly.
So as a quick synopsis, though, Manhattan Project is basically like a worker placement. And what sounds really cool is it's a game where you're trying to ramp towards that engine to start doing mass production, but you can send spies, use your opponent's buildings. You can actually like take out centers by doing bomb attacks. Sounds kind of interesting, and I mean, it sounds like a more aggressive worker placement than like what we're used to.
Yeah,
So
I want to check it out.
I do like that idea.
All right, so we're going to cut it there for Acquisition Disorder. We're just going to jump right to what we have played because we have actually started playing some of the games on our lists.
Huzzah!
Huzzah, indeed. At the table this week. All right, what did we play this week? Who wants to go first?
You want to kick it off, Chris?
Okay, well, I had a chance to play Back to the Future, the card game. Now, Mike might be interested in this a little bit because it really is
It's Chrononauts with a reskin.
exactly.
And I love Chrononauts. And I love Back to the Future. But I've heard that it's kind of
Terrible?
I've heard if you have Chrononauts, you don't really need it, and I have Chrononauts with all the expansions already.
Okay. So this part is going to be really boring for you because it's exactly what you said.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still here.
All right, for the people who don't own it, Chris, how does it play?
So you lay out a table of cards, and each card has a different event that follows in the past. And as a time traveler, you'll have the opportunity to go and change those events. And in this case, flip a card over, which could cascade over a number of other cards and change the events that happen in the future. You have a special condition that you want to happen based upon the character that you play in the game. So you're not playing the iconic characters of the movies, but you're kind of playing offsprings of them, people that are related to them, and you want certain things to happen. And if those things are accomplished, you go and try to destroy the time machine to lock everything down, and you win the game.
Didn't you send me a text or something like you're like, Biff got Marty's mom pregnant after all, or something like that?
It was really horrifying because there's that scene in the movie where
that's some horrible implications right there.
So if you remember from the first movie, Biff is taking advantage of Marty's mom, and Marty's dad actually gains the courage and the strength to take out Biff and win, Marty's mom, and they live happily ever after. In this game, you can flip over cards, change the events, and Biff ends up with Marty's mom and has a kid, and you could be that character in the game. So you could be the person to go back in time to make that event happen?
Yay?
Question: didn't that already happen in one of the movies where Biff ended up with his mom?
That's the second
Yes,
movie, yeah.
Okay, so
But this is
But
a
it's different because Biff killed Marty's dad in that movie. It's heavily implied.
oh, so in the
I
game
watched Back to
though,
the
the
Future
guy
a
was still
lot.
alive.
Yeah,
the dad.
you basically can be the offspring of Biff and Marty's mom, and not in a pleasant way.
Abomination.
Yeah, and you can actually go and make that happen because that was one of your win conditions, and so it's horrifying. You don't get to play with the actual main characters of the game, which is boring.
Do you ever go back to the Wild West like in the other movie?
There is a couple of the earlier events where you can. So basically, you're trying to undo. Some of the characters try to undo all the good stuff that happened in the movie, which seems kind of sad.
It almost sounds like Flux. Like you have a win condition and certain cards.
Yeah.
Chrononauts and Flux are I think Chrononauts is a superior game because it's got less of that suddenly the rules change kind of thing.
But Chrononauts is also better because not only do you have those certain conditions that you have to meet to win or lose the game, but you also have certain items you can collect.
That you can collect to win.
How many victory points is a flux capacitor worth?
But this game, it doesn't play as good as Chrononauts. It's not as good as Flux. You don't play the main characters. It's a
So
bad
it's
game.
like Chrononauts is a good engine for what it does, so they just did like a badly tuned version of it with a different skin.
Yeah, Chrononauts has a more historical feel, like you're actually changing time.
Do you think there's anything that can actually like save that game, or is it just there's really no point unless that's your favorite movie on Earth?
Exactly. Unless it's your favorite game on Earth, and even if it is your favorite movie, I don't know if it saves it for you because you're not playing any of the main characters and you're doing terrible things in order to make those things happen. And the other thing is, it ends really quickly.
I do like the doing terrible things part though. You kind of got me hooked at that.
And the game, because I met my win conditions like the third turn. The other person met his win conditions the third turn, and we were just waiting to end the game.
I want a Transformers Chrononauts game.
That would be awesome.
You can go back and stop Optimus from being made from the Allspark. What?
Yeah, but
You
so-
probably wouldn't play as them.
That's the problem.
Yeah, but like think about it. You can go back and like replace Megatron with yourself.
Oh, that's
Starscream is the leader of the Decepticons
That
now.
could be interesting. So how would you rate Chrononauts normally, and then obviously this is below that?
I would burn this. Actually, I wouldn't. See, before I would burn it, I'd go back in time,
And just stop them from making it.
stop them from making this game, and then burn it.
Do they have blank Chrononaut cards like they do for Flux and other games?
I haven't seen those.
No, I don't
But
believe so.
Put Whiteout on one and put down stop the spin-off Back to the Future game from being made.
That would be hilarious.
That would
I
be
want to play
great.
that a lot. You're like, okay, bam, we're done. This game doesn't exist.
And the movie has it could be a great game. They could make a great game from Back to the Future.
But they just Xeroxed.
Telltale Games did a great adventure game series based off of it a few years back.
So avoid this game, no matter what it takes. Go back into the past, go into the future. Just avoid, dodge, burn, whatever needs to happen, because it's unfortunately a really big waste of your time.
So if you can, find the original Chrononauts and the 2 expansions with it.
Yeah, that's a better choice if you like that type of big, involved, flux-like games.
Yeah.
What else did we play this week? Dan, what did you play?
We got a chance to play Arabian Nights, aka Misery Quest. It was really fun.
Is that part of the Misery Suite?
Yeah, like Arabian Nights, I gotta say, it's one of the most wild games I played because when you break out Arabian Nights, it's not like any other board game you play because the board is the most minor part of the game, really. It's a gigantic storybook, so it's like choose your own adventure, where 95% of the time things end in tragedy. You know, it'll be like, you see a pile of gold, what do you want to do? It's like, I'll take it. Oh, when you touch it bursts into flames, you're crippled. Okay, pass. I'm going to instead send my henchman. Your henchman touches it and it's corrupted by a demon. He turns and attacks you. You're crippled. Awesome. Great. So I was never meant to be able to walk away from this. But it's really fun. Like, you choose a couple of skills in the beginning. You're trying to, like, complete stories and quests. And you have to view it kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure in the world of a series of unfortunate events.
Well, you know, I've played it before, and I found it to be very interesting. One of the things I learned is you have to sort of think about how, something like how 1001 Nights was, and those stories are loaded with terrible people. So you come across the old beggar woman, you can beat her or help her. You go, oh, I help her. Oh, she was a demon.
She beats you.
But if you beat her, it's like, oh, you savagely beat her and you get like $10. Oh, yay.
But yeah, I mean, it's
So it's not a game for good people.
yeah, it's a long game. Like, we were just playing a casual game where we said, all right, 10 points, that's it. If you want to play the really full game, it is like Talisman time.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be lengthy because everything is a hindrance. You're lost. You only move one square turn. You're
crippled one
square turn. You're in prison. You don't get to do anything except for beg for help. Like, there's a lot of adversity, but if you view it with that, darker strain. All right, so Kim, you were in with us with Arabian Nights. How did you like?
I like it, even though it's like a misery crest. I love Talisman. I like when bad stuff happens because that's in real life. You don't get everything you want. There's not a continuous of good stuff that happens.
Yeah, but in real life, I don't get assaulted every time I go to work.
Technically, you do.
That's true. This was a different time, Dan.
Yeah.
People lived to 27. They were lucky if they had all their fingers.
Ifrits roamed the desert.
This is a game I always wanted to try, and then I think after the first time you played it and described it, I was like, I don't know.
You do have to give it a go, man. It is pretty fun. I think you would enjoy it.
Yeah. I love storytelling in games, so any game that can take like RPG elements and make that work as part of a board game, I'm all about that.
One other game we did get to play though, and Chris made the greatest city ever in, is we did Suburbia because we finally got Suburbia in.
Yes, that's
After
right.
101 years, it finally came out. And it was pretty cool. I would have liked a little more buildings. Very few new buildings. The main thing is the new borders,
Yeah.
Borders are huge.
which Chris instantly put to use. He built 2 borders right in the beginning of the game. Didn't wait to see what anything was. And my favorite was it was a radioactive field that you built. All in all, like I gotta say, the expansion is pretty nice. It adds, borders are a cool deal. The mid-game goals, one of them always increases income, and then the late-game goals are always going to increase your reputation.
Yeah.
So
Adding more goals is always cool.
Yeah, and I do like the fact that in those mid-game goals and the end-game goals, everyone can score them. So, like, take, for example, one of them is, like, a commercial state or whatever, where if you have at least 3 commerce, you get +3 income. Everyone gets it. It's not the player with the most.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty fun add-on. Gives people a chance to catch up if they're falling a little behind.
Yeah.
Gives you something else to do in the game. So, I mean, I would definitely say you got Suburbia, pick it up. It's $30, can't go wrong.
Yeah, and I would say be careful with the rules. We forgot to burn tiles.
Yeah.
Our scores got ridiculous.
Borders work the same as when you buy any of those base 3 buildings, where you have to destroy a tile.
And there are a lot of borders, and we used them all because they were new.
Yeah.
So the game went really long, and the scores were like, what did you end up, like 190?
Something crazy.
Yeah.
He was pushing the edge of the scoreboard.
Mushroom Cloud City.
Well, the borders really offer a different look to the city, and I like that because when I started building a couple of tiles, I was like, yeah, I can use a border here, but the borders aren't the best things you could possibly get, because while they offer a lot of benefits, they offer a lot of negatives too, because you're throwing down something that, just like with any other tile, has a plus or a negative. So once that tile's down there, that border tile's out there, where do you put your guys? Where do you put your tiles out there? So I literally had I had a lake on one side and a radioactive waste on another side, and I had a bunch of buildings go up the middle. I'm like, this is not going to work at all.
I had to move my city for you. I had to move because his was
were-
like all the way across the table at that point. You had like 2 borders on either side, all the way out, and then you built your city at the end of that.
And my favorite was in the beginning. We're like, who would possibly live in that city? That thing is a disaster. And then he wins with 190 people. Apparently, everyone.
Okay.
It's a site, you go see the sights, the rare place where there's a beautiful lake that,
It's like L.A. It's like, oh, beautiful mountains. Don't go over that mountain field because it's deadly radiation.
Like the one thing I would love to see is I was thinking about this like with that Duke expansion where it's the blank tiles. I would love it if they just put out a pack of like 2 blank borders, 4 blank A, B, and C tiles.
That would be pretty cool. Because it comes default with a couple blanks, right?
Yeah, those are
I
mainly to
remember
like
the
replace.
base game had a few blank hexes,
Yeah,
didn't they?
So the base game comes with a couple of the blanks to replace if like something gets damaged or marked. But I would love to just make a few of your own.
Yeah, like white ones.
That'd
be cool.
I'd also like to see some maybe more fantasy elements. Maybe you had a tile was Area 51.
Yeah,
That would be
or,
cool.
Or maybe like castles or just stuff that's more of, I think we talked about this earlier, more of the iconic monuments, but also some interesting tiles that you can kind of throw around.
I just gotta know, because when you said fancy elements, instantly I was thinking to myself, oh my god, if there was like an elven city.
Sure.
Like if they made,
You could do anything, yeah.
like with invaders. Oh.
Did you do the campaign in the app yet?
We gotta get
Where
on
you get to
Kickstarter.
Essen?
Yes.
And they have all the Essen buildings?
Yeah.
In German? It's like, why not do something like that with
Yeah, they
other
have-
cities? You could have expansion packs that are like Paris, London, New York, and then just have stuff from those cities.
Monuments.
That would be cool.
Just like Civilization has, like when you build the
Yeah.
special monuments,
Touch
hanging
them
gardens.
all.
You could even do something like Stargate. One of the tiles could be a Stargate, and you can start a building on another area, which would be like another planet.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so I'm gonna leave.
$1 million
the podcast right-
idea.
Yeah, I'm leaving the podcast right now to get on Kickstarter. You want to join? Anyone
Yeah.
else in?
Yep.
We're-
Yep,
Sweet.
rip it off Suburbia. Let's do it. right.
Maybe we shouldn't talk about this.
We have so many $1 million ideas. Nobody has time to steal all these.
No, I'm saying we don't want to. We're gonna steal this guy's idea. Oh wait, we shouldn't have admitted.
I
that.
know, yeah.
Welcome to America, baby.
It's a board game. What are you gonna do? So the reason we got to play Suburbia Inc. is because Kim had this epic Talisman game going in the other room, and they ran out of seats. So
And we
were
made
playing
the
Suburbia.
correct decision.
Wow.
No. Talisman's cool, but you guys, how many do you have? Like 6, 7, 9 people, and you
It-
finished the game,
It
right?
plays 6, but we did 9 because
Just why not?
we just had a lot of people, and like when we play games we do like a lot of house rules, and I got a lot of expansions, so everyone was able to have characters, and if they die they just pick new characters, so like nobody ran out of anything.
No, the only one you didn't use was the dragon expansion, right?
Yeah, they all looked at it and were like, ugh, because
So I think
you have
that's-
to fight a dragon.
But it looks so cool.
I was gonna say, I think that's Kim's way of saying your gift was terrible and she didn't like it.
Oh, I wanted to play it.
All our friends said it was terrible.
Yeah, I
They
know.
don't like it.
I made them take a vote. I was like, do you want to play with the dragons or are you noobs? And they were noobs.
You should have just been like, well, it looks like I'm
Want to
teaching
do
the
this,
game.
or are you all really lame?
Well, it looks like I'm teaching the game, so we're using dragons. Problem solved.
Yeah.
Like that's how you do that.
Well, I think actually somebody said, let's be lame and not use the dragons. I don't know.
I think that was Anthony.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Who was that? I don't know.
As soon as he didn't see the dragon on the board, he's like, yo, can I play Suburbia with you guys?
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact that you
You
got
almost flipped the table. You had to hold him back.
the fact that you actually got to end the game and like,
At 4:30 a.m.
yeah, but I mean, it was still under 6 hours, which that's kind of like a miracle in and of itself.
I want to play this. I haven't gotten a chance to. You had like the table was surrounded, and Dan was like, "Suburbia expansion." I'm like, "Yeah."
I know, that was hard. Yeah. And Chris, you pointed out that I sounded like I hated this game on the podcast when we talked about it. I don't. I actually like it a lot, but it's one of those games you can have a bad experience with, and I was just really happy that the game ended with a slightly less bad experience, so that I'll want to play again. But yeah, we should get it out again with the dragons, because otherwise, why are we playing?
We're not noobs. We're not lame.
Yeah, we're not noobs.
Seriously.
We have a podcast.
yeah.
Plus, the best thing about Talisman is you can play that game endlessly and never use the same person twice. Every
There's so
expansion,
many.
more characters, more characters.
There-
Like,
Yeah.
by the way, Kim, what was that game that you mopped the floor with me in recently?
America.
Love the games, don't get win it though.
You haven't won yet?
Not yet.
I got
What?
lucky though.
Give it time.
The games you like most, man, it takes you a while.
Yeah.
You warm up to them.
Bruges, I've won like once.
Yeah, but those are the games where if you lose, you still like it, so you'll still continue
Yeah.
to play.
Yeah.
Well, it's Summoner Wars too, right? Like the first, what you say, 8?
The first 4 or 5 times I beat him. I beat him savagely.
To be fair, I had the exact same experience with Summoner Wars.
But wait,
so-
and then he cheated because wait.
Because I attacked the wall and rolled
No,
high.
you didn't attack the wall. You stole my wall, so I couldn't summon anything.
For our longtime listeners, this is an ongoing
Yeah,
conversation
it
we've
is.
had.
This is gonna be in our wedding vows. Not gonna attack my walls
Remember when you
anymore.
cheated at Summoner Wars? I still love you.
I just gotta know, man. Like Amerigo is still one of my favorites, hands down. And I also gotta just throw this one out there. Recently, I heard that somebody said it's the worst game of the year. To quote Jamie on Secret Cabal, that's outrageous.
That is outrageous. I thought it was a
That is
joke.
absurd.
It is. It's
Sir, I've played it once and I loved it.
gaming credibility reduced to nil.
I could see you not liking it and still being like, it's still a good game.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah,
Like,
but
I don't
worst of the year, that's
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 what I'm
berserk,
saying.
man.
Like,
Come
I didn't
on.
like Bruges very much, but I can look at that and say that's a good game. I don't enjoy it.
I don't like. I really don't like Agricola, but I'm not going to sit there and say, "Oh,
But it's
worst
solid.
game ever."
Yeah, it's not your
got
theme,
some
but it's
good-
solid.
It just has a bunch of, has a bunch of solid mechanics, and I just had negative experiences.
Because people who like deck builders but hate Euros could be like, oh yeah, Suburbia is a horrible game. Nobody should ever play it. But it's only because of their preference.
Let me just go ahead. What would you say is the worst game of last year?
Gutter Gnomes?
Did that come out last year?
Even if it didn't, it's not your answer
It's
should
hard to
never
play.
be Amerigo. Mike, what was the worst game last year?
Augustus?
Perfect. Chris, what was the worst game last year? High
Parade?
Commands? Yeah. Oh, Parade. Yeah, he did hate Parade. I was surprised it wasn't High Commands.
Those are fighting words.
It was only because of coasters.
Because I remember he did not like High Command either.
High Command was just there's
Not
better
your thing?
there's better High Command like games. It was just I'd rather play Smash Up or a couple of others that use the same mechanics. But
What about you, man? Worst game of the year?
Garden Gnomes.
But the point is, your answer is not Amerigo.
No, it's not Amerigo.
Like,
Or
not
Masquerade. The list is
That's
crazy.
great. It's a good game.
The list is absolutely nuts. So anyway.
All right. So we like America. We reviewed it before. You can listen to that review on our earlier episode. We're not going to talk about it again because we obviously love it.
And now for the feature review.
So this week's feature review is Robinson Crusoe: Adventures on the Cursed Island, arguably one of the hottest games available right now. This game was originally released in 2012, but it has been out of print periodically, off and on, throughout much of 2013. Just recently could you even find a copy online, and it's still pretty hard to find. We got lucky enough to get a copy from our best bud, Brian, who supplies us with many of our review games, and we finally got it to the table. We've played through it. I've read through the rules and watched a couple videos multiple times just to make sure we had it nailed. And this is our full review of the game. Arguably, I think, one of the better co-op games we've played in a long time. The goal of Robinson Crusoe is basically to survive. Now, the game is different from a lot of other co-ops because you have a scenario which will change a lot of the win conditions of the game. The lose conditions are pretty simple. If anybody on your team dies, you lose, and if you don't complete the win condition within however many rounds the game gives you, you lose. So let's just run through the basic mechanics of this game, because when you first open it up, it looks very intimidating. In fact, the rule book gave me a headache for a good 2 weeks. I read through it once, I read through it most of it again, and then I turned to videos, and finally we just played it and referenced the rule book to make sure we had everything right. It's not necessarily a complicated game. There's just a lot of things going on. The pieces are very abstract, so sometimes those things are not immediately clear, and you're going to be referencing the book a lot. In terms of complexity, I've played a lot more complex games than Robinson Crusoe, but it can look overwhelming at first. Now, for the game itself, the basic idea is that you and however many people you're playing with, and you can play 2, 3, or 4, need to get food to survive on this island. You need to gather whatever resources you need for your win condition, and you need to survive when there are storms, when it's raining, whenever anything bad happens on the island, and something bad is going to happen all the time. Almost every single time anybody does anything, something bad happens. So on the board, there are multiple spaces. The actual exploration of the map is going to take place on a modular board, and you're going to shuffle out a number of hex tiles that are face down, and as you explore later in the game, they're going to flip over so you can see what they are. There are cards all over the board as well. There's invention cards, which you will build throughout the game, and these will give you additional abilities, or just make things a little bit easier in certain ways. There are action spaces at the bottom of the board, and these will correspond to where you decide to take your action as a character. Each character has 2 actions they can take per round. These will determine what you're able to do that round, but also the probability that you succeed at what you do. So the more players you have, the more actions you have, but of course it's harder to do certain things with more players because you need more resources. And you need more food because everybody has to eat at the end of every day. There are also a couple of NPCs, basically. If you play with 2 players, you get Friday. If you play with 3, you get the dog. And these just give you a little bit of extra boost to make up for the fact you have fewer players and fewer actions. So the game is going to break down over the course of about 7 rounds, or 7 phases. The very first phase is the event phase. The event phase is when you're going to draw a card from the event stack, and you're going to resolve it. Each of these events will do something different to the game. Some of them are very simple. They allow you to buy more resources. Maybe they add a weather die. Maybe they affect what resources are available to you. Sometimes they'll block off a certain tile that won't let you scavenge from there anymore. There's a lot of different things that the event cards will do, but the really interesting part with the event deck will come up later when we get to some of the plan actions you can take. And when you start the game, there will be a default event card out that lets you buy food. So basically you don't start behind the 8 ball in the first round. The second phase is morale. Throughout the game, there'll be a morale track. Now the morale track starts at 0, and it can go positive or it can go negative. The reason this matters is because when it's positive, whoever the first player is, and there will be a first player every round, then it rotates, will get determination markers based on where the morale track is. So if you're at 0, they get 0. If they're at 2, they get 2, and so on. These determination markers let you perform special abilities that only your character has. Some of them are pretty good. I mean, the cook, for example, can convert food into medicine, or can make a certain amount of food feed more people, which will come in handy later. The exploration abilities allow you to explore more easily. The builder can build things a little easier. There are certain little bonuses, and like any co-op game, it basically makes it so certain characters need to be taken care of more than others, depending on what time of the game it is, to make sure you get those abilities and that they have the determination points needed to use them. Almost everything in the game is shared, except for determination points. So it's actually going to be very important where that track is on each person's turn. And there are other ways to get determination points as well. For example, if you fail a roll, there's usually when you fail the roll, you get determination points instead. So you're never completely out of luck. Now, the morale track is going to adjust based on a number of things throughout the game. And the reason it matters if it's negative is, A, if it's negative, you lose determination points. But B, if it's negative and you don't have determination points to lose, you're going to take damage. Damage is not easy to heal. You only have so many points of it to start with. And again, if someone dies, the game is over. So it's very important that everybody keeps a close eye on their damage track at all times, because something can swing really quickly, especially with that determination track if it gets to -3. Okay, so this third phase is production, and this basically lets you gather resources based on where your camp is located. So every tile on the map has 2 or 3 little markers on it that tell you what you get from there. So there'll be food markers, there'll be wood markers, there'll be fur, there are hunt cards, and these just allow you to get something every round, even if you don't produce later. And it's basically a way to make sure you don't run out of completely everything. So you'll start every round with at least 1 food, for example, if your camp has a fish or a parrot on it. Phase 4 is where a lot of things happen, or at least where you plan out a lot of what you're going to do. This is the plan action phase. And the plan action phase lets you place your pawns on any of the action spaces. So you can choose to use the threat action, which is whatever's on the event card. And there'll usually be a threat action at the bottom of it, and it tells you what you can do if you put your pawn on that card. There is hunting, which allows you to go after whatever beast card is on the hunting space. This is interesting too because you have to actually move a card from the beast deck to the hunt space, which requires other actions as well. Then there are the three major actions: building, gathering, and exploration. Building lets you build one of the inventions. Gathering lets you go to another space on your explored map and gather resources like you did during production. And exploration lets you flip over a new tile. Every time you flip over a tile, there are little bonuses on that as well. Then there is the arrange camp or rest action. Arrange camp is going to basically let you boost morale or gain determination markers. And rest just lets you heal. Now, the interesting thing about actions is that you are only going to get the benefit guaranteed if you place 2 pawns on that space. So if you only put 1 down on exploration, you're going to have to roll the dice. And the dice vary per action, but one of them will determine if you succeed or fail. The next one will determine if you get injured. And the third one will determine if you draw a card. These are all separate. So you can succeed and still get injured. You can fail and not get injured. And drawing a card, again, independent of those 2 things. So if you are not willing to put out 2 of your pawns on a specific action, you are rolling the dice a little bit. Now, each of these actions, there's a different probability that you'll succeed. Most of them, it's more likely than not than you will, but there's always the chance you fail and the chance you take damage, which is a big deal. And those cards are not necessarily a good thing. So it's important that you measure that out. If you put 2 pawns on any space, you automatically pass. But then you've used a pawn that could have gone somewhere else to guarantee that action, and you have less actions elsewhere. And as you get further in the game, you'll see how big of a deal this is, because let's say you need food, and you use up 2 actions on exploration, and you don't get any food when you flip that exploration tile, you're probably not going to have enough food at the end of the round, and that's a big deal. Okay, so after you've placed everything out, you're going to resolve. You go through in order. You do the threat action first, then the hunting, then the building, then the gathering, then the exploration, and anything else you have out there. You roll the dice if necessary. You draw whatever card it is. You resolve that card, then you move to the next action. For hunting, it's a little unique because you need 2 people to go hunting. You can't go with just one. We actually made a mistake when we played the first time where we let just one person go hunting. Probably made the game a little easier. It's very important that you put 2 out there. But you get a lot of food usually when you're hunting, so it helps to balance the game a little bit. Okay, after you've done all that, you're going to go to the weather phase. Now the weather phase, usually early in the game there is no weather. It's supposed to simulate summer. It's pretty nice out. But as the game gets on, it's going to get a little harder. These weather dice come out. There are cards that are going to put weather tokens in the weather section, and these will just make it so you have to roll extra dice. Once you get to certain rounds of the game, however, you're going to have to roll dice almost every time. And this is going to matter because if it rains, for example, and you don't have a roof, that's going to cause damage. If it snows and you don't have a roof, more damage. If it's a storm and you don't have palisades up, even more damage. And every time any of these happens and you aren't protected from it, you lose wood and food along with the damage. So it can actually start to stack up really fast. You might think you're okay, and in the course of a single round, take a tremendous amount of damage. Someone might even die that quickly. So it's important that you're always protected. Finally, there's nighttime, and this is when you feed your people. So you need to discard 1 food per player. If you don't have that food, somebody needs to take 2 wounds. So you're just going to say you have 4 players and you only have 3 food. One person chooses not to eat, and they take 2 wounds. So you can decide who is going to be affected by that. But it's important that most of the time you want to make sure you have enough food. The thing about food, too, is that it does spoil unless you have certain things. So if you don't have some method of keeping your food, or if you don't have preserved food, the food will go bad, and you might overproduce one round and not have enough the next. Finally, if you don't have any shelter, you're going to take another damage per person. and you'll get rid of all that food because it is the end of the round. And that is it. That is a full round of Robinson Crusoe. Now, the reason that this game seems so complicated is because there are so many options and so many tokens. There are different wood cubes, plastic cubes, markers for different spaces. There are different things that affect the morale. There are different event cards. When you pull a card from any of the action spaces, let's say you explore with only one pawn and the dice roll says you have to draw a card, that card, if you decide to resolve the top action, and a lot of times you'll have an option, the card's going to go into the event deck. And when it comes back out of the event deck, it's probably going to do something bad to you. For example, one of the cards we had let us take 2 wood right away because we found bamboo on the island. But when the card came back out of the event deck, our roof broke because bamboo is not a very good wood and it's pretty weak. So the thematic string there basically is that, hey, we found some free wood, that's awesome. If we take it, however, it's going to break because it's not very good. And that's part of the charm of the game, is that every decision you make eventually comes back in some way. So it's not, you're not just constantly making decisions like, oh, we're going this step closer to this or this step closer to that. You're going to see the results of those decisions constantly as the game evolves. Now, there's a lot more going on here. There are some other mechanics that aren't in the very first scenario you play. Each scenario twists things up a little bit. Some of the tokens do things that only happen in that scenario. There's different ways to play based on how many players you have. Some of the cards will change depending on the layout and scenario of the game. So it's a game that's never quite the same. You could play it 4 times, play different scenarios every time, and still be reading the book by the end of the 4th time. But that's part of the joy of this game. It's so much fun as a co-op because it really puts you into those shoes of a castaway, trying to survive, trying to get off that island. And it's definitely, in my opinion at least, one of the better co-ops to have come out in the last few years. All right, so that is the gist of Robinson Crusoe, Adventures on a Cursed Island. Let's hear what everybody else has to think. All right, so what does everybody think of Robinson Crusoe?
I thought the game was pretty awesome, man. It was nice to have a co-op, not the usual like pandemic style where someone can alpha the game, because you need to do everything. It's just a question as to which is going to be the most dire consequences first. You know, like, do you want to take on the threat of that weather? Do you want to try to, are you afraid of letting somebody starve out? Like, it's pretty fun. You know, everything is important, so no one can just be like, you're doing this, and you're doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny, too, because at first we thought it was a little easy. I mean, it ended up being a little easy. We beat it, but it was like the practice scenario with 2 of the mechanics turned off. So in the end, we beat it. Probably would have been fine at any point. Like, there was no point we were, like, close to dying. But we were like, I would say it's like a 60% win. It's not like we dominated it. It's like when you beat Pandemic and you beat on the last card, you know?
Do they have any other animals to eat besides gorilla?
Yeah, it's like you eat a zoo. Apparently this island has one of everything. Like, this is where Noah's Ark crashed and you just...
Really?
Yeah.
It's not an island, it's a zoo.
Like, Chris at one point was like, I'm going out hunting. We had gator burgers that night. I'm like, oh, let's go look over here. Free birds! Like,
Yeah, by default, like any of the tiles where you can pick up food, it's like parrots or fish for some reason. And then if you go hunting, it's a gorilla.
No.
So
real quick, to be fair though, one thing with when we said, like we did pretty well. To be fair, we did play our first like 4 turns wrong because we were only using 1 person when going hunting.
That's true.
So we kind of got a few free actions technically.
Yeah, because towards the end, when people started taking a lot more damage, we were spending a lot more of our actions healing and resting and getting the stuff we needed to actually survive. Early in the game, we're just like, yeah, let's kill everything.
The one thing too is you mentioned in the walkthrough about like those cards that you take the choice, and then if you take, you decide to take the boon, then it goes in that deck. Those cards also chain together because it's draw another card, draw another card. So at one point we had like 7 bad things happen to us in a row.
Yeah, good point.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, that could start to add up pretty fast. Yeah,
it's like, oh, it's okay, we lost the food. Oh, and a wood. Oh, and I got hurt. Oh, and Chris lost an action. And now our roof is caving in. And
yeah.
I think at one point in our game we actually lost all the inventions for a round.
Yeah, the hurricane.
Yes,
that was a rough round.
That was.
Like if that had happened earlier, it would have been really rough.
Sure.
So, but we already had pretty much all the wood we needed.
And I think there was later on where it added, was it the weather died, the snow, the winter kind of died?
Yeah, the winter came and stuff like that, which...
And we were already in there, so it wasn't really that dramatic of a change.
Yeah.
I do think it was funny though when like we lost all the items. It's like, oh cool, I'm gonna go check the pits for food. We don't have the pits. Okay, well I'm gonna go hunting. We don't have a weapon. I guess I'm just gonna scavenge then. It kind of made our decisions for us.
I'm kind of really hungry right now. Yeah, the mechanics are kind of cool how they work together. And I'll admit, when Brian gave us this game, I read the book twice, then I watched a video on YouTube, and then we played through it while I was reading the book, checking things. So the instructions are not fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's a case of like if you play the game twice, you're gonna be checking the book constantly. And then after that, you'll consult just the adventure board.
Yeah, because you look at everything, and there's so much spread out on this board, it doesn't really look like it blends together. But it really does really well. Like, once you start playing, everything kind of affects everything else. It all makes sense eventually. So once it makes sense, it's easier to remember the rules. The problem is when you look at it on paper, it doesn't.
And one of the challenges, the game is trying to set up for multiple scenarios, so it needs to be very general. Yeah. So when you're looking at the board and you're looking at the tokens, you're like, this doesn't really look like something that would relate to that, but it has to be that way in order for you to use a different scenario but use the same tokens.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like the iconography, because in the one, like when you found like I think it was like a bonus wood or something, it just looked like a red X, and you're like, well that's weird. But then we found out there's like 5 or 6 chips that in every adventure they mean something different. So it's like there'll be one that has a line through it, and one that looks like a blood stain or something. So like in this adventure, it might be that, you can take 1 wound less when hunting. But in this adventure, it means you can go like 1 further out when you're traveling or something. So it's the same token, but it's 7 different things based on the scenario.
Sure.
What scenario did you guys play?
We just played the first one, the Castaways. And it's kind of like the welcome to the game version where you're not going to get destroyed.
Like in the Cannibal Island?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So the game comes with 6, I think, and some of these look brutal.
And that's one thing I kind of like, the fact that this game can be ripe for expansion.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm just waiting to the point where people start releasing on like Board Game Geek, like PDFs of their own adventure ideas.
Yeah, I actually want to check that and see if they have them, because you can go on Board Game Geek and download like the King Kong one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
which
pretty cool.
I think Brian just ripped it out of a magazine because it's in the box. But
Okay.
it's you can get a PDF off there too, because it was just a free thing that they put out. So you can get 7 right now. Why not? You can write a dozen of these things.
I think what's really surprising to me is when you play these co-op games, they're usually pretty generic and everyone has a little bit different to their character, or maybe you can go to a different section. But this game really is heavily thematic. The pieces, the boards, the tiles, the inventions, the graphic design, the artwork, it really kind of gives you that feel that you are on an island and you don't have a lot of resources. And when you actually get to pick up those inventions and build them, you actually feel like you accomplished something and you can actually add to the adventure a little bit.
Yeah, and there's nothing at any point that feels like... There's going to be times when you're like, you have to go get food. We need food to survive. But it's nothing like, this is how the game's going to go for 4 rounds, because this is where we're at in the game. You're kind of creating your own story, and that's going to impact what decisions you make. It's kind of cool. You don't really see it at first, but as you play through it, as those cards start coming back out of the event deck, as you flip the tiles over when you're exploring, you really get that feel of like you're on an island, you're trying to figure out what's going on.
That's all I like too. Just even if you play the same scenario, the modular board concept makes it where you can automatically map out. Like when you start playing Pandemic or Flashpoint, you kind of always know your beginning game. You're always going to do the exact same type of things because like you're that role, that's what you should be doing, and you're going to just, until the game starts up the randomness. This game, the first tile you step foot on, you don't know what it's going to be. That's a kind of fun element.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I think it's going to make, like, replayability, like, there's never going to be an issue with this. The game's a little long, I think. I mean, we played... It was our first game, so it took a while to get going, but it took us, like, 3 hours. I think you're looking at, like, 2 hours a game easily on this.
Yeah.
And so if you want a quicker co-op, this isn't going to be it. But in terms of, like, just raw theme and infusion of the story elements, this is one of the better co-ops out there.
Yeah, Cam, I think you would like it a lot too. We got to get you in for a game because I know you like your Flashpoint and the team games, but this one it's really fun because you can play the same game with the same people, but you're doing a whole bunch of different things instead of let's just get these people out of this fire. Let's just do this. Like, some scenarios like like Cannibal Island, you have to actually run around burning down their huts.
Yeah.
I do want to try the Cannibal Island, but I want to try with the first one though, the first scenario.
Yeah, just get the
Because-
hang of
It'd
it.
be good, yeah. Because I think there's two major mechanics they dump in the first one.
Yeah, it's like the only thing I know so is like a lot of like ally games. It's usually like the more players, the game is either like kind of scales or like sometimes gets harder. Like in Legendary, you know, you're going less often between the enemy popping up and everything. So I feel like Legendary 5 players, you get your teeth kicked down your throat. Play Legendary 2 players, you usually end up actually stomping the guy because you're reshuffling your decks faster. This game, it really did feel like an island because if you were playing 2 players, those, you know, the bad things are happening just as quick because it happens at the end of a full player turn.
Yeah.
So you're only getting like, you know, like 5 or whatever actions in a 2 player. You know, even though you need less food and less resources like to build those huts, it could be really bad. But with the 5 of us on the island, I felt like we actually had a chance to survival because we were going as teams to things.
Yeah, definitely. And the game scales really well. So the number of things you need to build roof or to put out, you know, your palisades are less if you have less people. Plus you get Friday if you're playing 2 players, and you get the dog if you're playing 3 players. So it all scales out pretty easily.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool, like, if one person dies, the game's over. So it's not like you can sacrifice a player. We're like, no, we're going to make it. I'm going to make it.
I'm just picturing, like, a boat finds 5 people that were shipwrecked on an island for 10 months. Like, oh my God, you know, they're survivors. And somebody's like, yeah, I made the roofs. I made the most roofs. I did more hunting than him. I kept us alive longer. It's like,
I have 12 points. He has 7. Yeah. So I know, like, the one thing we talked about that we were not 100% on was the components. You look at the components, they're very abstract.
yeah, I mean, like, I would have loved if, I mean, because even from the Kickstarter, if they gave you, like, the wood from Caverna and Agricola for the wood in the game.
Yeah.
Or, like, you know, like little plates for food. Just, like, a little something more than just cubes.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, you go online and buy your own
Yeah.
meeples and replace everything, but it's everything's a cube, and there's like 10 different colors. So even when you're like splitting them up and you're trying to remember which color goes with which cube.
Yeah, we didn't bother to like try to plan all this or anything. We just had everything poured on the table because you're digging through every time. Because like also when you're drawing the cards, it's just like, oh, and you get this. It's
What do y'all think overall though in terms of rating?
yeah, I mean it's definitely very cool and everything. Like when I was looking on the prices, I noticed online you can't. It's almost like the Caverna deal. You can't get it more than 10% off.
Yeah.
So it's still over 70. I would like a little more on the components, or even if they noted like you know, like a guarantee, like, hey, every 2 months we're going to release a new scenario as a PDF, just like a little something else, because it is a bit of a slightly pricey tag, but I mean it is a very fun game. Like this is something I wouldn't mind having in the group for us to play, but I wouldn't have to like run out and get it on my own.
Yeah, like if one person had it, I'd be happy.
Yeah, like I would gladly chip in like $15 towards it, but
I was looking at the resource cubes. Is it they're cubes because the people who made Caverna and Agricola basically copyrighted those food-shaped meeples, or like anybody can have those meeples?
no, there's like meeple sources online, like I think like meeplesource.com and a few others where you can people like make them on their own too.
Yeah. I mean, if you bought this and wanted to go out and replace all the meeples, you could, but that's another $20 on top of an $80 game.
Well, I'm just saying the reason why they didn't do that.
Oh, yeah, no,
is
it's not like a,
because
it's not
they
like a
didn't wanna-
copyright.
Saving money, you know.
I'm guessing that, like I said, I think some of the scenarios might. We haven't gotten to all the scenarios, but some of the scenarios might, like, hey, this is a food cube, but in this scenario, it's plague or something else. It could be something completely different. So they might have had to add a lot more components to kind of fit that. But
I just want a scenario where you're playing Cannibal Island. If you're like low on food, you can just eat the cannibals.
Then you become them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And now that it's like the table gets split, it's like half the table playing against the other table. That's how you get your trader mechanic.
should be like a D20 insanity roll.
So this game is now Battlestar and Cthulhu.
Well, you were on an island for quite some time, you know. So
I will say right now, if they ever release a scenario where someone's a Cylon, like, you know, you're on Caprica and, like, you know, like surviving after the nukes, I'd buy this game in a heartbeat. I would pay the full 80. Because that would
you
be
would.
an awesome scenario.
It'd be pretty cool. They're like, why are all these inventions like shovels and stuff? Just go with it, man. Just go with it.
Yeah, it's like a laser spade. And
So this game is it's a play for me, and I think like everybody else said, if somebody in your group has this, thank them very much for going through the rule book so extensively like Anthony did, because I think you need a really good friend to chug through that and then go through the components and try to set up these scenarios. It's not an easy task, and it's not for your new co-op player kind of jumping into this, because there is a lot of blank generic components and pieces and scenarios that you have to set up just right in order to play. And I think that's like when we started playing for the first couple of rounds, there are things that you can easily miss out on. So play it if you can, if somebody has it, but I would avoid it, especially now at this price tag. I think it's a little high for the components, but still a great game and really something you should try if you have like a senior player who's actually played through the different scenarios and can actually kind of like GM the game a little bit.
I definitely want to try this out. I'm not gonna rate it because I don't know how the gameplay is. From what I saw, it looks interesting, but I noticed that when I rate games before I play them, it's kind of bad because I'll be like, oh, that game's not that good, and then I'll play it and I was like, I love this game. So I'm not gonna rate it yet. I want to try it out first and see how it goes. It could be a buy, but also your wallet too. You have to take in consideration.
You might want to get 5 survivors to each chip in like $20.
Yeah, right.
So
I would say if it was $60, it would be a buy for me. I think it's really good. It's probably the best co-op I've played in terms of just overall theme. Felt really into it. Like most co-op games, I get kind of bored halfway through. Like you want to beat it, but if it doesn't look like you're going to, you're just like, eh. Or if it looks like you're going to, you're like, okay, so this game's already over. We won.
It's nice to have those dice mechanics in the game too. So like you and I can both go on a mission to ensure it succeeds, or roll a die and see if you're going to accomplish the task. And it's not just accomplishing; it's accomplish the task, lose health, and then what was the other one? They get to receive a card.
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's a lot of possibilities, not just success or failure, which was nice.
And the card's almost never good, despite what George kept thinking. He kept getting excited. Woo, I get a card! Like, George, bad. Cards are bad.
I still remember my favorite was in the very beginning, that first card with you, Chris, when you're like, why wouldn't we want the wood? And then that was the first of the 7-card chain of bad things that happened.
Well, that was the bamboo, right?
Yeah, and then it broke. Yeah.
Yeah, because what I love is like that every time you take those bad cards, you're shuffling it into that deck. So you're like, there's only 1. There's only 2. There's only 10. But they can all be in a row because you're reshuffling every time.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, it's a buy, but the price kind of knocks it down to a play. I'm not personally going to buy it. If I ever saw this, if, say, they started printing more copies than they have, which is... I don't know if that's going to happen because nobody can find it. But if they say they do and it, cool stuff gets it for $60, I'd pick it up.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm glad that Brian the backer got it, so this way we can still get access to it.
Yeah, it's in the store, so we're going to play it.
Our Meeple backer did quite well for us this time.
All right, so that is Robinson Crusoe, Adventures on the Cursed Island. One of the better co-op games I've played in a long time.
Definitely.
All right, so that's everything for this week. Next week, well, I guess 2 weeks from now, we will be covering Caverna, which Chris has got. He's actually got it in front of him right now. He's putting it in the Playground boxes so he can actually put it back in the box.
That's true.
But that is everything for this time around. This is Anthony.
This is Dan.
This is Kim.
And this is Chris. And until next time, we'll save you a seat at the table.
All right. So in Caverna, that box is literally the biggest box I've ever seen for a game.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And once you open it, you can't put it back without massive reconstruction.
Yeah. How much does that weigh?
47 pounds.
I
47.
think it weighs more than camera.
Yeah.
It's really got a lot of...
Everything was more.
It's pretty much true.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to see what's going to go faster. Him punching out the chits for that game or us setting up the next round of Robinson Crusoe.
Yeah, right.
If we put on to Crusoe,